Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Gimme 5 Book Review and Author Interview, where we talk about the brilliant minds behind books that truly matter. I'm so excited you're here. Today's guest is bringing a fresh, powerful perspective to the world of mental health. And trust me, you're going to want to hear what he has to say. Joining us today is Dr. Paul D. Corona, MD, a Southern California physician who's been shaking up the fields of psychiatry and family medicine with his one-of-a-kind mind and body healing approach. With over 30 years of experience, Dr. Corona blends science, heart, and innovation to create real solutions for real people. His latest book, The Corona Protocol, is bold, it's visionary, and it's a game changer. In it, he lays out the scientifically backed medical solution aimed at tackling some of society's toughest problems, from addiction and bullying to homelessness, school shootings, and even suicide. And it's not theory. It's 30 years of work, practice, and results. So, if you've ever felt like traditional mental health care just doesn't cut it, if you tried all the Band-Aid fixes, get ready. Dr. Paul is here to break down all and share what true lasting healing can really look like. So let's get into it. So please join me and welcome the amazing Dr. Paul D. Corona to the show. Hey, Paul, how you doing, Dr. Paul Corona?
Good. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Where in the world are you?
I'm in Orange County, California. So I'm in Laguna Niguel, so it's near like Laguna Beach, Newport Beach area.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. I'm a native California too as well. Hey. It's good to meet you. So Paul, we have a lot to cover about your book. It's truly, truly exciting. So are you ready to get going?
Sure.
Perfect. Well, let's start with the book, The Corona Protocol. So let's dive in. What exactly makes the Corona Protocol so revolutionary in the world of psychiatry?
Well, I mean, it goes way back to like when I first started in medicine. I was always interested in mental health, but I ended up becoming a family doctor in the early 90s because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I thought, well, I'll just become a family doctor, do a little bit of everything. But during the 90s, I really started to understand mental health more and more. New medications started coming out. I started to work with. Then I started to lecture to other doctors about the stuff, and then during the 90s I got more and more fascinated with this subject. So around the year 2000 or a little bit after, as I decided to give up that and to go full time into mental health as my practice, and so that started me writing my writing journey. I wrote 3 books at that point over 12 years, and those are called Healing the Mind and Body, the trilogy. Because I started writing because I really discovered that I was seeing things that other doctors weren't seeing. And the way I was doing things, it was different than other doctors, like psychiatrists, primary care doctors. So basically the Corona Protocol is the methods that I've learned how, as far as how to combine medications, what to start, why to start it. So it's very, very detailed, kind of an algorithmic way I've learned how to do things in my own methods. And after those first 3 books, before this new book, actually, I wrote 2 more books, training manuals for doctors. So it took about 4 or 5 years writing those. And then I put those aside before I wrote this one. But see, I wrote my goal is to teach and to educate. So those 2 books I put aside before I wrote this one, and now I just finishing those this year. But that led to the new book. So the new book, basically, I wanted to write a book that was different than my previous books. I've been a fiction fan my whole life, reading, and so I decided I wanted to write a book about storytelling. And so the Corona Protocol is really about telling 30 original short stories about different people. The full title is The Corona Protocol, a scientifically proven medical solution to stop addiction, bullying, homelessness, school shootings, and suicide, 30 years in the making. So the book, I basically cover a lot of different subjects, a lot of different diagnoses, whether it be anxiety or depression or bipolar disorder or PTSD. And so I cover a lot of different subjects. But what I do is I talk about a subject, and I delve right into a story about a person that's suffering with that. And so yeah, so the book's done very well. And because I think people can relate. A lot of people say I can relate to these stories, or I see myself in this person's story a little bit. And so that's why I think that, and I think it was fun. It was fun to write it too, because I think it was fun making up stories. And I mean, some of the stories are made up stories. Some of them stories are about patients that I know or have known. So, but yeah, that's kind of what led to the current book.
Yeah, and the subtitle by itself covers such a wide range of social issues. So it makes me wonder, how did you tackle that? I mean, how did you decide exactly what you're going to talk about and format that? How long did it take you to put this together?
Fairly quickly. I hired a guy who helped me to name of the book, the title of the book. I didn't really know what the title would be, so he came up with the Chrono Protocol. And basically, I just, the subject in the book, a lot of just very common things I see, but I wanted to put those social things in there because there's a lot of that going on out there. There's a lot of homeless people, especially in California, especially a lot of people who suffer with addiction. Bullying is a huge problem, kids and adults. School shootings are shocking when they happen, but that's our reality. And suicide. I mean, so I wanted to kind of include subjects that are more difficult subjects to talk about and tackle. And I wanted to, and they kind of grab the attention. The subtitle of the book kind of will grab your attention when you look at that, and so that's the other reason. But yeah, it took a little while to figure out the subtitle, but pretty quickly we come up with a good working title before I started really getting into the book.
Well, definitely the subtitle grabbed me by the throat and did one of these, right? Because all those subjects touch so closely to my heart as an educator and a counselor myself, and an author as well. So in the protocol, those are measures or steps to take. Can you discuss maybe what the measures or steps are?
The what steps?
So you have measures or steps to take in the protocol. Can you expand on the protocol a little bit for us?
Yeah. So basically in modern psychiatry, I call it very boring and slow. So the typical model is, we'll start you on an SSRI, like Zoloft or Lexapro, and then it takes 4 to 6, 8 weeks to work, and then we do that. So they work very slowly, so I've basically disagreed with the way they do things for a long time. I work very quickly. So the protocol basically that make very quick decisions. It takes medications that I work with no more than like a week to work, 1 to 2 weeks at the most to work. So I basically try to take a really good history from a patient, try to make a good choice as far as what the first medication I'm going to try. Have them call me back a week later to let me know how it's going. So I keep in very close contact with patients. It takes me about 2 to 3 visits at the most to get people feeling amazingly better. And it usually takes a combination of a couple medications together, sometimes 3, with different mechanisms of action, so that to try to get the really best results. And the best results I'm looking for are just feeling like I feel like myself again. I haven't felt this good in so long. I've never felt this good, because all the medications are doing is balancing the person's chemistry. And so what we're looking for is a normality or a feeling of normal, not a feeling of high or low or anything. It's just a normality. And so there's a lot of misconceptions about what we call psychotropic medications are about and what they do, but they're basically just working with the body to balance what's out of balance. That's it. And so the protocol is really quick decision making, getting people better within the first few weeks to month or two, versus this slow, drawn out process that psychiatrists often do. And, because, I think that they do things differently because that's what doctors do. They never change what they do. They do exactly what they've done from training, and they don't learn new ways of doing things. And so when I started learning newer and better ways of doing things, it led me to really go down this road I've gone down. And I'm glad I did, because I knew that I could make a bigger difference doing this than being a family doctor.
Oh, absolutely. And I agree with you about the doctors. They have their own special way that they've done things over and over and over, but not everyone fits into the same cookie cutter mold. So how are you going about educating health providers with your protocol?
Well, that's what these two books. So I finished this current book last year. So this year I've been working on those two books that are to educate doctors. And I've already finished. Well, I finished them. I've been editing them this year. I finished one a couple weeks ago. The other one I'm finishing actually probably today. And then I'm gonna hand them off to my editor. But yeah, I basically really realized after my first three books, and before I started writing the Corona Protocol, that I thought, something's got to change here. I need to educate this because doctors are not understanding this subject, especially primary care doctors like me. They don't do a lot of it. Don't get really comfortable with doing it, and then kind of punt to psychiatrists. But psychiatrists, though, there's not enough of them to treat everybody. They're expensive. They take a long time to get in, and I think most people want to go to their more friendly family doctor for things. And so hope that's what my goal is, to educate primary care doctors so that they can help their patients. And that's how I want to give back. And I think that I want to make the biggest difference I can. And I can only do so much on my own seeing patients. That's why I want to spread the word that there's a better and different way of doing things.
Oh, absolutely. And that's so needed in today's world, for sure. With all these social issues are just exacerbated. They just keep getting bigger and bigger. So right. What do you think, Dr. Corona, is flawed about the current psychiatric model?
What I think about it?
Yeah. What is it about it that you feel might be flawed, the conventional way of doing psychiatry?
It's flawed because the way they think is they don't understand how to combine medications. So I've read psychiatric textbooks to try to figure out how they think, and and the way they think, it just never changes. In other words, the very basic SSRI, the best first line agent, I've disagreed with that for 33 years now. So basically, if they're starting on the wrong foot, it's harder than to get it right for patients, because you have to choose the first medication correctly. And then like I said, then you basically treat from there. But it really goes back to 1993 when I don't want to get too much into the weeds here about chemicals, but when the Effexor XR came out, it was the first we call SNRI. So it's serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor, not an SSRI. So when I started seeing that medication, what it was doing, it was helping not only anxiety and depression, but also body aches and pains. So I started seeing this physical connection between stress and mood and the body. And so that's what really fascinated me. And as a family doctor, I was really paying attention to that, because doctors focus on the physical body. I think psychiatrists miss this because they focus on the emotions and the mind, but they don't know what to do about the body stuff. And so that kind of put two and two together, realizing that this is, I'm really realizing newer, better ways of doing things that I wasn't reading about. And even now, 30 some years later, things are never changed. Things stay exactly the same in this field. And but there's better and newer ways of doing things. Just the vast majority of doctors don't know that.
Yeah, it's interesting that the mind body connection, right? It's like many physicians, only in my whole family are a family of physicians. They're focused on their area of expertise and then not making the connection that, hey, it's all related, the emotions, the body, everything, right?
Right.
So what I'm super interested in too are the societal problems that's being addressed through psychiatry. So how can the early intervention prevent societal issues like school shootings and suicides and bullying? That's a big one.
Well, again, you got to identify people early on, before someone would become an addict, before someone would become a school shooter. It started somewhere. So it started with the person, mood wise, something happened. So it's very, very common. A lot of this stuff starts in middle school. With puberty, that's a lot of times where anxiety and depression start happening, and so early. So some people say, "Oh, that would be too early to treat something." No, it's not at all. I treat a lot of teenagers, and there's this misconception that they're too young to take medication as well. If they had diabetes, would you give them insulin if they needed it? Of course you would. So I think if we really understand and treat these conditions early on, it can prevent all the suffering. It can prevent, again, if we can identify like school shooters before they happen, and usually with them, there's definitely some history there. They usually they tell people what they're going to do, like on social media. And so, so there's ways of, intervening early and trying to prevent that. And obviously access to guns, that's where, the parents are going to come in, not allowing that kid to have access to guns. And so, so early intervention can prevent suicide. It can prevent, that bullying is a whole other issue, because that's just pervasive in our culture. Not only people think bullying on the school ground, well, yeah, that happens too, but bullying among adults, and a lot of that in social media, a lot of, and so, so as far as early intervention, it's just like, I think the earlier we treat things, the better. People might think, well, how do you know when to start treating it? Because isn't everybody a little bit anxious or depressed sometimes? I go, yeah, but the difference is when it becomes more pervasive and it starts affecting your life negatively, that's the sign to treat it. When someone's telling me, I just don't feel myself anymore, I just don't know what happened, but I just, then that's where I step in and say, okay, well, there's an imbalance in your system that can be correctable quite easily.
Yeah. So are you able to reach with the school systems to help them to identify these early signs of our teenagers that are maybe depressed or suicidal or very volatile towards they might commit a crime? Is there something in place for that?
There really isn't. I'm hoping with this book and my two newer books that are coming out this year, I'm hoping that I can, to get well known enough to be able to step in and try to help to educate. That's kind of what the goal of writing these two books has been, is that, and the books, and also, we can talk about it in a moment. My new TV show. My TV show is doing really well, and so I'm hoping with the TV show, with the books, that basically I'll be more recognized, so that maybe I can go and travel around and talk to school districts about early identification. And it's tough. I mean, preventing shootings is difficult because we're dealing with a sociopath, and it's hard to, sometimes it's hard to catch them, and because you don't realize they are, but these are kids that are often bullied. They want to get revenge. They want to get their names out there. They want to become famous. So that's why they, what drives them to do this, but a lot of revenge, or if they've been bullied by people at school, then they go back specifically to shoot those people or shoot teachers that they don't agree with, or what. But yeah, tragic cases. But I think, like I said, if you look back at the history of some of these shooters, there were signs, there were warning signs, and people sometimes would ignore that, or they would project, like I said, on social media or internet that what they were going to do, and nobody steps in to stop it. So hopefully we can figure out some way to where people can work together to figure out how to identify these people before it happens.
Oh, man, exactly. And so with that and your patient journey, I want to backtrack just a little bit towards medications, because there's so much controversy on big pharma, right? And I'm wondering, you talk about supplements and alternate therapies, but let's talk first about the off-label use of medication. So one of the more controversial aspects of your work is your use of off-label medications. Can you explain why this is such a central part of your protocol and why you believe it should be the rule and not the exception?
Right, because, off-label basically means using a medication for an indication that it wasn't originally intended to be used for. Example, antidepressants. So, what I see more than depression is anxiety disorders. So what do we use for anxiety disorders? Usually antidepressants. Do they work? Now, was it ever indicated for that? No, it never has been. So that's we call off-label. Using an antidepressant, certain ones for fibromyalgia, for irritable bowel syndrome. That's way off-label because they don't, talk about that during these, so basically pharmaceutical companies, when they study a product or release it, they can only talk about what it was originally intended for. They can't talk about anything else. So off-label, I call cutting edge medicine, and when doctors can learn how to use medications in different ways, that's really where the best results are at. And that's what that's why I talk about my books. That's what I'm going to be teaching at some point is understanding how to individualize the medication to the right person. And there's a lot of controversy about medication because people say, I'm not a pill person. I don't want to support big pharma, like you said. But when you realize that psychotropic medications are safe and extremely effective, and really all they're doing is balancing the person's chemistry. So if the chemistry is off in then that person's system and their brain and their nervous system, if the medication can help restore that balance. If it's not the problem, then this medications won't help. It won't do anything. And so you do find patients who don't respond to medications, but these are probably people who have something else going on, like a personality disorder. They might have a borderline personality. They might be a narcissist. So there's other reasons why some people don't respond to medications. But anyways, I hope that answers the question. So. Yes,
it does. Yeah. And there's so many rabbit holes we could dive down on that one for sure. So thinking about the alternative therapies, the supplements and alternate treatments are often dismissed as hype. What's your take? Are they part of a real healing or just a cash grab in the wellness industry?
Good question. I think they can be beneficial. I mean, I take supplements that my doctor has recommended. As far as with what I do with mental health issues, they're not that effective. I mean, so we got, the more known ones would be SAMe, St. John's wort, 5-HTP, GABA. There's a bunch of like over-the-counter supplements that you can try, but the problem with those is they're not fixing the problem. Their theory is that there's like a serotonin deficiency. So if you add more serotonin, that is going to help. It's not what the problem is. It's not a deficiency of chemicals. It's an imbalance of chemicals. So what the medications I work with do is they specifically bind to the nerve cell, and they force the chemicals to go the right way. So they're basically kind of changing the flow of the chemicals into the right direction. So that's the problem. So the medications I work with actually get to the root of the problem and fix it, and not just try to throw a Band-Aid on the problem. So, but again, it's people want to say, love the terms holistic and naturopathic, but holistic basically in my mind, it means helping the body heal itself. And that's what these medications do. They actually help the body to restore the balance that was once there. And the people who have these issues, they can't help it. It's mostly a genetic issue. So you take a family history, we're going to see patterns in families. So that's the number one, is genetics. Hormone changes, it throws things off, like puberty and postpartum and menopause, and then stressors and trauma of life. So there's different factors that lead to these imbalances happening. But can those other things work? Yeah, they can help somewhat. It's not what I'm trained on, so maybe they know things I don't know. Maybe, not sure. But in my experience, though, I've had a lot of patients come to me after they tried a bunch of things and haven't worked, and then I put them on something that works great really quickly, and then they realize, oh my gosh, I've been doing that for so long, because it sounds great, and people say, well, I'm not a pill person. I don't want to go to the pharmacy. I don't want to. Well, I'm sorry, but if you don't realize that this is a medical problem, it's not just a psychological issue. It's a medical chemical issue that we need to deal with. And the medications are just basically restoring the proper balance. That's all they do.
So I like that. And, with the holistic health trends, especially post-pandemic, we're seeing the growing interest. People are looking for more alternative ways. So I understand that the pharmaceutical medicines are better for treating the physical body. So why do you think your approach is resonating now more than ever?
Well, because I think that, what's resonated when people start reading the book and realizing, and I've had doctors reading it, and they said I never thought of it that way. I never really thought about the physical connection, and so even though we see it all the time, I think doctors just don't put two and two together to realize that this mind body connection is real, and that we can see in our patients when they come in and tell us, look, doc, I miss my body. My body is hurting. My head aches. My neck, my back, my stomach. We basically, doctors need to understand that there's a connection there, and if we treat this properly, we can help them emotionally, we can help them physically. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, definitely the mind-body medicine connection, right? So being able to heal both the mind and the body in this holistic model that you're offering, right? So that's something that traditional psychiatric treatments might be missing. Would you agree?
Yeah. And that's, I think, like I said, and then the biggest thing is that psychiatrists, again, they don't really understand the physical part. They don't ask about it. When patients tell them about it, they don't know what to do with it, because again, they keep, doing the same thing over and over again. So when I see someone who's come from a psychiatrist or from other doctor, and I see what the doctor's done, I'm like, what are they doing? I mean, they're just, they're beating a dead horse here. They're doing this like the same thing over and over. And if it doesn't work, they try the other medication in the same category. And it's like, how do they expect that's going to work when the first one or two or three didn't work? And so their thinking is kind of, they're so stuck in their ways. And so I don't mean to disparage psychiatrists, because there's some good ones out there, but there's also a lot of doctors who just don't understand this big picture. They don't understand how to get people completely better. They might get them somewhat better, but my goal is to get every person optimally better, which means back to their selves again, or better than that. And so that's the goal. And again, it's just in this field of psychiatry, I think it's the field that is most behind as far as anything else in medicine. One major reason is because most areas of medicine, we can see things more objectively. We can see a blood pressure, we can do blood tests, we can do scans. So a lot of areas of medicine, we can actually see, this is off in your blood, so I'm going to add a thyroid supplement or whatever. In this area of medicine, it's different because there's no blood tests, there's no scans. It's all based on history. It's all based on listening to your patients. And so I do a lot of, you have to really not talk as much as listen. Because patients really will tell us the joke is if you listen to patients long enough, they'll tell you what's wrong with them. So, meaning that, shut up and listen. Just your patients listen to their story, and when you listen to their stories, and you really understand and connect with that patient, you realize, the medication part becomes really easy. And the way I teach it, and with the Chrono Protocol, where I also talk about medication with each case, I'm explaining myself like each step of the way why I'm choosing this and that, and so that I think that's what people really like about the book is the storytelling, but they also see like why what the role of medications would be in that type of a person, and why I'm doing that, and so I explain myself at very little detail as what I'm doing with each case, and that's the way I treat people in my office. I'm constantly looking for improvement, and I'm not satisfied until the person says I'm doing great. So if the person say I'm doing 50% better, okay, well that's a good start. Let's work on the other 50% now. What else can I do to get that person to the finish line?
That's awesome. And I love the idea of storytelling because we learn through stories. It's been done for centuries, right? So like you said, some people can find themselves in that story in your book that they can relate to. And it's like, even though maybe it's a fictionalized story, it was based, no doubt, around some true patients that you've had, then they can say, well, if that person can do it and they've had this results, I can do it too, right? Do you think that experience keeps them coming back and they're seeing results and you're constantly looking for more improvements for them?
Yeah, because, we call it in the field remission. So full remission, again, means completely well. So a question I ask every new patient that I don't think any other doctor asks this question is, tell me about when you felt your best in your life, emotionally, physically, where would you go back in your life where you felt your best? Now, there's two main answers. One is childhood, so elementary school. So why? It's childhood. You're a kid. You don't have a lot of worries. You play with your friends. Life is not very complex. That changes with puberty. That's when things start to go downhill a bit in middle school. Or another answer is that, late teens to early mid-20s. Why? Well, again, the same reason, more carefree time of life maybe before you settle down, maybe before you have kids, maybe before life gets more stressful, so you're training for a job, you're in college, maybe, so it's more carefree time of life. So I try to find out when those years are, when those times are, right. I document that so I can go back to it later. And then some people say to me, I can't answer that question. I really can't. I had a terrible childhood. My parents were horrible, or one of them was. No, it wasn't teens or early 20s, because that's when I was like severe into my addictions at that point in my life. And so a lot of people will say that I don't even know the answer to that question. So that's a good answer. Okay. So later on, when I visit after visit, I go back and say, are you back to, no, well, how far are you? 50%? How about 70? Oh, you're 75%. Okay. What's the other 25%? What's still residually left that's not better? So I basically, keep pushing visit by visit until I get person to that goal of like, I feel amazing. And I can do it pretty quickly. I do a lot of phone calls in between visits. For example, every new patient, I have them call me a week later because I can tell within the first week if I chose correctly. And if I didn't, I can stop it and switch to something else before they see me again. Or I adjust the dose a little bit more so I basically do a lot of in between with patients, because they know they can call me and I can call them right back. And so that's why I want to work quickly to get the person better as quickly as possible. But that's really the goal, is with, and most doctors don't do that. Most doctors, you're feeling a little bit better. Yeah, I'm a little bit better, but this medication is causing me to be tired. And and apathetic a bit. Oh, okay, but you're feeling better. Your anxiety better though, right? Yeah, it's a little bit. Okay, well, okay, goodbye. So they don't. Most doctors don't really keep pushing to people to better, and maybe because they don't know how to do it. Maybe they think that I don't want to put the person on more than one or two medications. The number of medications isn't what's important. It's the result. It's what the results are. And some people take more, like the bipolar patients. They take longer to get better. They take a couple more medications than someone who has just we call major depressive disorder or an anxiety disorder. So it's everyone is ultimately everyone is totally treatable. It's extremely rare that I have a patient that I can't figure out like how to get them better. It just takes, you have to keep on it. And doctors, like I said, the doctors just basically just settle for, good enough when they could do a lot better. And that's one of the sections of my new book coming out talks to doctors about these subjects in detail and why it's important to get the person, to the finish line.
Exactly, to the finish line. That's the key word, because like you said, that they hear, oh, you're feeling better. Good. Okay. And then out you go. And they didn't hear the part where I'm really feeling lethargic or, apathetic or something. They didn't hear that part. They just heard, oh, your anxiety is better. Cool. Right. So definitely we need to address the entire symptoms and what's working, what's not working, and continue to adjust. Right. So next thing I want to ask you, Dr. Corona, is men's mental health. There's a lot of stigma around mental health for men. Why do you think it's especially hard for men to seek help? And how do we break that cycle?
That's a tough one because men are men. And so women are much easier to treat because women are much more communicative. They listen better. They understand that there's something wrong in their bodies. And, Men are more difficult because you got the macho, you got the veneer of I don't want to display signs of weakness, and I'm not a pill person. I don't want to do it. I want to do it naturally. So I think men are more difficult because they're just more stubborn and they just don't want to. They don't want to be. I don't want to be medicated. I don't want to be like that kind of person. It's like, look, you've got a chemical medical thing that's treatable, but yeah, it's definitely more difficult with men, no question. I see definitely more women than men in the practice because again, women seek help more than men do. I mean, men sometimes they're dragged in by their wives or they force them to go in to see me, and then they're reluctantly, and then I have to talk the person into treating this. And I also explain every patient I see. I explain what I'm doing. I draw neurons. I explain the neurochemistry of what I'm doing, explaining, okay, here's exactly what this medication does. So when I write diagrams for them and show them on paper, it's instead of having a blood test, at least it's something where they can look at it and say, okay, that makes sense. Because if I just say take this, and they're like, well, what does it do? If you don't explain what the medication does, the person might leave saying, I don't want to take that, or they go on the internet, which is what so many people do, and they look up and they go like, oh my God, I looked on the internet and it scared me. I don't want to. All those side effects. I go, there's not all those side effects. I go, well, it said all that in the internet. I was like, so that's a frustrating part of the job sometimes, is convincing people that, look, these are safe, they're effective, they're not, doesn't mean you're weak. All it means is that we're treating something you can't help. Your dad had it, your mom, whatever. I said it's passed down to you, and so why not deal with it? Why not feel better? Why get stuck with, where you're feeling when you don't have to? There's really easy treatments available to get people back to themselves again. And with men too, a lot more like irritability. So the spouse or girlfriend or whatever will tell me, gosh, he just blows up so easily. But normally when men get angry, when they're anxious, when they're down or depressed, because they're upset that they feel that way, and so yeah, there's different ways that women present more emotionally, men present more with anger, and so And then it can often turns to drinking too much and other addictions, which is extremely common.
Yeah, and sadly, it's the societal programming for men that, like you said, they have to be strong, they have to be tough, they can't show their emotions. Are you finding more men are coming in now than previously in the past?
Sometimes, somewhat. It depends. I mean, probably not that much more, to tell the truth. COVID, the pandemic was a disaster for mental health. But yeah, everything got worse with that and the pandemic and the destruction that our policies caused. But yeah, with men, I need to, it's a lot of convincing, and sometimes they get forced to come in, like I said, but yeah, men, you have to convince them, that, not that you have to do that with women too. I mean, I have to convince all my patients to follow my program and take a leap of faith. But yeah, it's, men are men.
As long as they know that, with the side effects, their nose is not going to fall off. They'll still have their arm and legs at the end of the day. We should be okay. Which is cool too, because let's talk about the Dr. Paul Show now. So your new show, the Dr. Paul Show, is now reaching people around the world. What inspired you to start it, and what kind of impact are you hoping to make with this platform?
Well, interesting, because there's a patient of mine who sent my book to a friend of hers who runs a TV network, and so I get a call that this woman wants to have a Zoom meeting with me, and so I read your book and I really liked it, and we don't have any. Would you be interested in a reality TV show based on what you do? And I thought, absolutely, because I thought this is a great way to get the word out there and educate. So, so we started. Basically, the majority of the show is me sitting with my I pick patients that have really interesting backstories, and they come to the office. I sit with them. We they tell their story. I interview them a little bit. I ask them questions. So they're about a half hour each episode, and then. But yeah, it's basically a reality show based on real patients of mine, not, and so, and I do a lot of short little videos, but on YouTube. But yeah, it's gotten really, we're up to, it's on Roku, Amazon Fire, and YouTube. And on Roku, we've had over 6.5 million views worldwide already. On YouTube, which started later, my YouTube channel, we're up to almost I think 55,000 views already so far. So we're in our fourth season. We've already released almost 50 episodes. So it's been fun. Yesterday we filmed here for about 4 hours. And with 4 hours of filming yesterday, I'm going to get a lot of shows out of that. So we don't film every day, every Friday, but normally every third or fourth Friday. It's a lot of work. So I have to call the people and make sure, are they willing to come on camera to talk about personal stuff. But it's been really, really great. And so it's the Dr. Paul Show on Roku. Now, to find it on YouTube, you have to put the Dr. Paul Show, all lowercase, all stuck together, no spacing, no period. So THEDRPAULSHOW. So if you put it in just like the Dr. Paul Show, then you get a free channel popping up, but it's gotten super popular. The network now wants us to do a documentary on one of the cases. So we're looking now for someone to do a documentary on, and so. So they want, and so what I'm hoping is with the show, with the new book, with the two new books coming out this year, that that it'll get me I'll be able to be recognized to the point where then I can take my career to the next level. I'm not going to stop practicing. I want to continue a full-time practice, but I want to be able to educate, maybe do a little bit of traveling, speaking. So I'm looking for big stuff to happen, because I think what drives me, it's not success or fame or money or anything like that. It's the fact that I want to be able to help as many people as I can. And I know that if I can get to other providers and teach them, then they can help their patients, and because I can only do so much. And but I'm excited about the future. Again, I'm also excited that today or tomorrow at latest, I'm finally going to be finished writing after 23 years and 6 books. That I'm finally done, and people say, "Oh yeah, you say you're done." I'm like, "No, really, trust me, I'm done." I say it, and I've written like 2,000 pages of material. It's like I have nothing else to really say. Everything's in the books. There's nothing more. So
yeah, you get to a point of just like, I can't say anymore. I've done everything. I've written everything, and you've talked about everything. So you say now the Dr. Paul show has been going for 4 seasons. Is that like a equivalent of a year or 2 years?
It's about, each season is about 16 episodes. We release 2 a week, and so yeah. So we started it. I don't know how many months ago. I think last year we started it. And so, yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's fun. I enjoy it. I really enjoy it. I love talking with patients. So that's the thing. It's very natural for me. And we also have I've interviewed psychologists. I interviewed a guy who's an expert on psilocybin, mushrooms, magical mushrooms, a woman who specializes in ketamine. And so I kind of, with the show, I like to have guests on that have different points of view, and not just me talking about medications. And I want it to be bigger than that. And again, it's not just medication, it's exercise. And I talk to my patients how to learn how to relax, breathing exercises, coping skills, seeing a psychologist when it's not when you should, if you can benefit from that, if it's more situational or past stuff that needs resolution. So it's not, for my practice, it's not just about medications. It's about whatever the person needs, whatever that individual needs. Mm-hmm. And if the person is traumatized from past and trauma like PTSD, there's some really good therapies for that. Like EMDR is the most effective therapy for trauma. And so, yeah, so there's a lot of different answers besides just medications, but at the end of the day, medications are hugely important, and they're not addictive. They're I call them holistic in their action. So yeah, but that's where a lot of the misunderstanding is out there, because there's so many people just say that, like I said before, I don't want to take a pill from a pharmacy. I want to do everything else I can besides that. And okay, well, good luck with that. I hope it works. If it doesn't, maybe next year you'll realize that and come and see me or come back. So, but yeah, it ends up becoming the patient has to make the ultimate choice of what they want to do.
No, absolutely. And so when you were starting up this show, how was the receptions of patients? Was it hard to convince them to come on the show and share their story and do this reality TV with you, or did you get a good reception towards it in the beginning?
Very good reception. Surprisingly good, actually. After filming yesterday, I already have like 4 or 5 people that I have on my desk actually over here that I called about yesterday, and they said they couldn't make it. So, I asked them, I said, would you be willing to do it in the future? And they go, yeah, just not this Friday. And I go, okay. I said, I'll call. And so we'll probably, so I already have enough material probably there for the next time we do a shooting, which is about, I like to have about at least 4 people coming in when I have my videographer comes in to get everything set up. And, but yeah, you'd think that there would be more people that would not want to do that, but it's surprisingly how many people don't mind doing that. Or some people want to be on TV, or they want to be on camera because it's exciting for them. And some, I pick people obviously who have really good results, so they come in, they're live testimonials, or I hear all the time, you saved my life, and if I wouldn't have seen you, I don't know if I'd even be here anymore. So you hear that kind of thing from patients, and that's, it's very powerful, and so, and the hope is that people who watch it will see like, oh my gosh, if that person could get better, maybe I have hope, so I'm hoping that it'll give people, viewers hope, and to realize that, this stuff can be treated, but, and if you can't find a doctor that knows how to do it, I see a lot of people virtually. I have a lot of patients out of state. So if people can't find a doctor in the area that knows what they're doing, then feel free to call my office and we can set up something, and I can help for sure.
Do you do virtual healthcare as well?
Yeah, but like I said, since COVID, in-person visits in the office are way down. Most of it is virtual by phone. Ever since that, because I think people realize, especially with what I do, it's basically talking and listening. We can do that without the person being here, and so yeah, I think a lot of people take advantage of that. Normally, like for new patients, I want them to come in the office in person, and then maybe after that we can do over the phone or virtual. Now, if it's a person who's like out of state, well, they're not going to come to the office, so that we can make an exception there. But I have people fill out, if you go on my website, to fill out the new patient form where I ask them lots of questions. And so that way, I know going into the visit exactly what their history is. So then I read through that. It takes me a few minutes to read through that. And then I know a lot of information going into the visit about what's going on. So then I can really use my time wisely to ask more questions, get more details, and then more time just, deciding what to do and explaining what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And so, so that's why, it's, so that's been my approach, and it's worked very, very well.
Yeah. I can imagine too that, there's benefits to meeting them in person the first couple of times, just so that you can learn their body language, the little tics that they might have that you might not catch, like when you're on camera sort of thing. So that's great if they can make it in. So I'm thinking the Dr. Paul Show is a great extension of your books. Yeah. For sure, to keep that momentum going and keep that word spreading, right? And you also have an audiobook that came out too as well. Tell us about that.
Well, yeah, I decided basically, I had so many people say, are you going to come out with an audiobook? And especially my ADD patients, because people with ADD have a really hard time reading. So I got so many requests, and then some of the pharmaceutical reps that call in my office, they're spending a lot of time on the road. And so they like to listen to this book. So since listening to books has gotten so popular, and I've gotten so many requests, then I eventually then said, okay, I'm going to do it. So I didn't do the voice. I was offered to do the voice, and I just didn't want to read the book again, because I'm just so sick of just reading it and editing it. And but I picked a guy who's a really great voice, and but yeah, it's on Audible, and it's the audiobook's doing really well. So now it's on hardcover, softcover, ebook, and then now Audible. So it's on every format you can get it on. So I with this newest book, since it's my biggest seller, I wanted to do everything I could with it to get every format of the book out there, so people can choose what they want to get.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking audiobooks, of course, I love audiobooks, and I'm not ADHD, but I just am so busy that I love to listen to audio while I'm doing other things. Yeah, multitasking, exactly. I know is overrated, but I do it anyways. Are you on your show? Are you going to maybe open that up to the school systems, the educators, to talk to them about these different social issues? Are you going to open it up to other therapists so that, like you said, you could share mutual and work together, collaborate together on different issues that people have? Or how's that going?
These are actually very good ideas. That's not a bad idea we just said. Yeah, that just opens up another possibility for sure.
Well, yeah, happy to help.
Yeah. Well, those are great ideas. So I wanted to talk, to different people about their views. I had one with a pastor, And he talked about, we call contemplative prayer, about, ways that he's learned how to be able to relax and relax the mind. And, so, so there's a lot of various methods that can be used to treat these things.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I actually have somebody who would love to talk with you. I'm at her house right now here in Germany, and she's a therapist, child therapist, and she has a book about the keys to your childhood, right? And so we've been talking a lot about it, and she was excited that I was interviewing you tonight. She's in the other room. And it would be amazing to hear how you two could talk about how to help each other in the realms of psychiatry that you're in, on your Dr. Paul show. Just putting a plug in there for her, so that everyone can come together and network, right? And get the word out and help each other however we can to heal our young people, all ages, of course, but I just, my heart goes out, because that's one of my personal areas, is with teenagers, goes out to them. And every time I hear about bullying and the tragedies that go on with school shootings and suicides, I think, oh my gosh, there has to be some way we can reach these young people and get a hold of them and say, you're going to make it through this. It's going to be okay. And you don't have to do X, Y, and Z, but here's a method, so God bless you for everything you're doing, Paul. And I'm so excited to get this information out to my listeners as well. And your publisher has sent us all your information for all the connections, how to find the Dr. Paul show, your audio books and your books. So do you have a copy of your book you can flash across the screen, or am I putting you on the spot?
Let's see here.
There it is. Awesome. Awakening the Mind-Body Connection. I love it. Fantastic.
And the cover, I got the cover designed by someone, I love the cover. And then I have my other 3 books, my first 3 books over here too. Actually, I put this on, I have a whiteboard that I use with the TV show. So after I see a patient and they leave, and then I go on the whiteboard and draw neurons and explain, okay, this is what medications are doing for this person. So the show is about not only interviewing people, but also educating about the role of medications and what that person's on and what medication does. And so it kind of, so that's all part of the show is is talking and educating, really.
Definitely, and debunking the myths out there. And like you said, people go and Google this medication and find their arms and legs are going to fall off if they take it, or they're going to die of a heart attack, or, their eyes will pop out of their head, something, so that you are helping to dispel some of those rumors, misinformation, I should say.
Right. Yeah, it's very important that people do not get information on the internet about medical things. Internet, friends and family, or pharmacists. Those are the 3 sources I warn people about. Don't get medical information in these sources. Get information from your doctor, someone who's educated in the subject. But my sister is a biochemist. Great. But does she prescribe medications? No. Okay. Well, then great. She's obviously a smart person. Great for her, but she don't take medical advice. Someone who doesn't train for that. That's not what she does, And so, so it's important that people, get the medical information from the right sources. And so that's.
Yeah. So what's something that you could leave our listeners with that could give them hope or direction? What is one thing message you'd like to get out to our listeners today?
Is to never give up hope. And I if you're suffering and you're frustrated, realize that you can be helped. And if you're frustrated because, let's say, you've gone to your doctor and he or she has not really helped you, or helped you only a little bit, it just means that the person doesn't really know how to treat it optimally. Not to fault the person. It's just that it's obviously not something the person either does a lot of, or maybe not trained adequately on. So don't give up hope. The answers are out there. You can get help. But I think when people lose hope is when bad things can happen. That's when people start making really bad decisions. And so that's basically the main message, is that, don't give up hope, and also realize that we're dealing with a medical problem that can be treated in medical ways, and it's not just a psychological issue. It's a medical issue.
Absolutely. And I've heard a lot of people I've talked to in my personal life that said, the darkness just overcomes them and they feel like they're just so low. There's just no way to crawl up out of this depression or this hole. But if you look down, you'll see there's still a little tiny spark of hope, and to know that there's always a solution for every problem. There's a solution. Sometimes you have to look. And I feel that your book, your talk show, your audiobook are all wonderful avenues for people to seek help. And so I'm so grateful for you, Dr. Paul. Thank you so much today for your time. I'm so inspired. I'm going to go check out your show and get the audiobook so I can multitask and listen some more. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so we'll talk soon. Take care now.
Bye.
Bye. And that's a wrap for today. Thank you so much for joining Dr. Paul and I for such an amazing interview. There's so much wonderful information and guidance. Like Dr. Paul said, if you feel like you're in a place where there's no hope, there's always hope and there's always a solution. So please go down to the description box below, go check out Dr. Paul's talk show, check out his videos, and send him a message. Get in touch and empower yourself to heal yourself. So thank you so much. Hit subscribe, like, all that good stuff. And I'll see you for the next Brilliant Mind right here on Give Me 5. Bye for now. Peace out.